This is King Noble Black Supremacy, and with this particular video I want to talk about being a slave to egocentrism versus the freedom of becoming nothing, because true freedom is becoming nothing. But we have become slaves to egocentrism, and I'll just give you some examples because egocentrism has become a new trend where people are just caught up in their own spiritual journey and their self and their ideas. And I was broke when I was young, and now I got something when I was old. Or they're attached to their unique type of victimization, which has become a new product, and they become very self-centered and individualistic, where you see the people that are very material talking about the same things that people that are supposed to be deeply spiritual, just in a different context. Whereas the dude that's material is talking about, how many cars, how many vehicles they got, and, how their life journey has led them from poverty to wealth. And then you go to the spiritual person and they're still talking about their life, their personal individualist life journey, and how much they are attached to their individual selves and the value of their individual selves, which amounts to egocentrism. When you listen to them, it's all about their personal spiritual journey and what they went through. And you ask, in the grand scheme of the cosmos and in the galaxy, how valuable is an ego's individual journey through life? Now, a human being is less than a dot, is an invisible dot in the grand scope of all existence, materially in the cosmos and within inside of eternity. The human being is an invisible dot, but the egocentrist has made that individual existence the totality of reality. And we wonder why we can't come together as a people to unify, to create constructive change in our society and in our race. It's because our leaders have become too egocentric. And they push egocentrism for the person to get more caught up in themselves and their journey and their life and their parents and what they went through, and how them making small changes in their life is somehow going to impact the world or the globe or nature or all of these ideas. So it keeps the individual more caught up in themselves, more self-absorbed, and really more disconnected from everything, under the auspices of being connected to everything. And they become a slave to egocentrism to the point of now it becomes religious, where they have to fight for these ideas and these identifications and these philosophies, and these personal choices become the fight, to the point that they're distracted from fighting that which is an enemy to humankind, to mankind as a whole. So we see egocentrism in the music and the rappers. We like the rappers and the music where they're just really caught up in themselves and how many chains they got and what type of car they're driving and what type of wine or alcohol they're drinking and what type of drugs that they're using. That we find more value in the individual's ego than we find in our collective consciousness and our collective spiritual journey of transformation. That's what distracts us and keeps us at odds with one another, because we're trying to defend our personal egos and expand our egos and go more into our ego. So we keep beefing and debating and trying to make comparisons, while at the same time we say we see everybody as ourselves or as a reflection of ourselves. But secretly, through egocentrism, we're very competitive, and we see the value in our lives as how it distinguishes ourselves from what we consider very little value in the lives of others. But just to give you some context, let me break down what egocentrism is. Egocentrism Egocentrism is the inability to differentiate between self and others. More specifically, it is the inability to untangle subjective schemas from objective reality, an inability to understand or assume any perspective other than their own. So now that's deep. We can't even see another person's perspective or identify with where another person is coming from or see the value of another person's experience that's different or opposite to our own. That we must view everything from our own individualistic, egocentric perspective. We must put our own personal narrative on the experience of everybody else. We're not able to step outside of ourselves. See, that's one thing that the egocentrists cannot do. They cannot step outside of themselves because they're so absorbed in their personal struggles for power and control and identification and attachment. They're so caught up there that they can't step outside of themselves completely for a moment. They can't put themselves aside to take on the perspective, which means sympathize, empathize, or have compassion for the path of another individual, or see a value in the life and existence of another individual that may be radically different from their own. They cannot step outside of themselves because everything is based on their experience and their lives and their values and what they perceive. Although egocentrism and narcissism appear similar, they are not the same. A person who is egocentric believes that they are the center of attention, like a narcissist, but does not receive gratification by one's own admiration. Both egoists and narcissists are people whose egos are greatly influenced by the approval of others. Now, this is what I talk about you being a slave to egocentrism. Why are you a slave? Because you want value from the world of the matrix. You want value from the white man's world. You seek approval outside of yourself from others about your own personal journey, about your own spiritual journey. You want to be approved. You need your life to be approved and validated. So you, out of being a slave to validation, you're in the matrix. You want them to accept you. You want to show up in their reality as being somebody, as being something. That's what makes you a slave, because how they view you is the basis of your reality, is how you view by others, whether they are part of the conscious community or not, or the unconscious community or just general society. Your life must show up as valuable or relevant in that reality, or to yourself you don't even believe as though you exist. That's how egocentric you have become. So now you must be able to flash what you have spiritually, materially, or ideologically. You must be able to flash it, stun it, show it, to show that your life has value. Whether it's cars, whips, or just your life story, or your individual experiences, your challenges, or your narrative on how you overcame this or that you have to flaunt that to the world and get approval from the world to have value within your own existence and within your own life. So you're not even a slave. You're a slave to your own egocentrism. And that's when I talk about the power of becoming nothing. Because when you become nothing, you are free. You're nothing to nobody. So you're not attached to people's perceptions. You're not attached to people's narratives and concepts and frameworks, because you have value within yourself as who you are. You can be nothing to everybody else and be okay. And thus you cannot be pulled back into the matrix and pulled into negativity and pulled into drama and pulled into gossip and pulled into low frequency. You can't be pulled in that to no more, because you no longer could be valued there. You no longer seek approval there. You're not trying to be accredited within that realm. You're okay with being nothing. That's free. If you want to be valued by that which is in the matrix, by the web of approval, that we call zombie land, the unconscious, Babylon. If you want to get caught up in the web of approval, then you will be pulled back into the matrix and are living in a matrix of some sort. When you become nothing, you are free. When that becomes your identity, when you can say, I am nothing, nothing can be marketed to you. Nothing can be sold to you. You have no fears. You have no doubts. You have no lacks. You have no limitation. You have no buttons because you have become nothing. If you're something, that something that you are is on the shelf. It's on the bookshelf. It's in the store. It's at this event. It's with this association, this group, this clique. And it pulled you right back in the matrix. There's a holiday for that. There's a day for that. There's a celebration for that. There's a group for that. That's social validation. Snatched right back in the matrix. But when you become nothing, none of it is connected to you. None of it can attach itself to you. None of it can leech off you or vampire off you. You have become absolutely free. But as long as you want to be something or somebody, there's value in the matrix. That's a product. That's marketable. There's a role for that. That's an actor. Let's continue. Although egocentric behaviors are less prominent in adulthood, the existence of some form of egocentrism in adulthood indicates that overcoming egocentrism may be a lifelong development that never achieves completion. For many, adults appear to be less egocentric than children because they are faster to correct from an initially egocentric perspective than children, not because they are likely to initially adopt egocentric perspectives. Let's talk about egocentricity during adulthood just a little bit. I got to go into that just a little bit because people wonder why they're depressed. Although, let's go in. Here we go. The prevalence of egocentrism on the individual has been found to decrease between the ages 15 and 16. However, adults are also susceptible to be egocentric or to have reactions or behaviors that can be categorized as egocentric. Frankenberger tested adolescents 14 to 18 and adults 20 to 89 on their levels of egocentrism and self-consciousness. It was found that egocentric tendencies has extended to early adulthood, and these tendencies were also present in middle adult years. Barron and Hanna looked at 152 participants tested to see how the presence of depression affected egocentrism. And they also tested adults between the ages of 18 and 25, which they found the participants who suffered from depression showed high levels of egocentrism than those who did not. Now, what does that say? When you're so egocentric, the victim consciousness has to come out of egocentrism. And you got to realize the victim consciousness creates the terrorist. It creates the murderer. It creates the person that wants vengeance, the revenge. It creates the person that has justification to harm some innocent person that is actually irrelevant and has nothing to do with the pain that they feel within, that they are overly attached to as their identity. You have to be egocentric. So egocentrism leads to victim consciousness. It's connected because it's all about you. Even though, like I said, you're a dot, less than a dot, an invisible speckle within a realm of existence, galactically and as far as the cosmos speaking. And as far as time, eternal and immemorial, you are completely invisible. But to you, as an egocentrically speaking, you are ginormous. You are immensely huge. You are the grand scope, the central theme of all life and all existence. What's the problem here? That you can't see anything else. That you don't have a multi-dimensional perspective of reality. You can't step outside yourself. You can't see the world in a bigger way. You're ignorant. People think ignorance is lacking education or schooling. Ignorance is also the inability to step outside of oneself, to see things from many different perspectives, to gain a supreme understanding. That's ignorance too. You're ignoring a lot just to focus only on yourself and your feelings and your perspectives and your dramas and your over exaggerated difficulties and situations and circumstances in your life that have become your traps. You can't let go of your negative narrative about who you are that fuse your success story about your life. Egocentrism has taken over. And now it's only about you and how you've changed your life and your diet and changed from being this to that, which has nothing to do with the collective condition of black people as a whole. And actually excludes you and isolates you from being effective or proactive in the grand scheme of the human condition, specifically as it relates to black people. You are not free if you are a slave to your own egocentrism. You have to become absolutely nothing. That means you have let it all go, that you are free, and that you are a liberated human being. You are not defined. You're not trapped in any definitions. You have not been caught up in any narrative, any perspective, any paradigm. It's nothing that can trap you or lock you. You are absolutely free, absolutely open, not forced by any concepts or ideas coming from within or outside of yourself. When you become like nothing, then you can be free because there's nothing old about your life and your reality that you have to hold on to. No old concepts, no old constructs, nothing that has been spoon-fed to you, no way you have been trained. You are absolutely free when you have become nothing, because who you thought that you were was an egocentrically manufactured and produced to trap your infinite and eternal soul within that context. This is King Noble Black Supremacy. Join my website, www.kingnobleuncensored.com. Donate and don't hate.